Another 1-0 win for Barcelona, but another nervy finish. If Ivan Martin finishes that one at the near post, it ends 1-1. But it didn't. And that means it's 3 more points for FC Barcelona in La Liga. Until Real Madrid play tomorrow, Barcelona has a temporary 6-point lead in the league table. And if you ask Real Sociedad, who sit in third, well, they could actually jump up and tie Real Madrid on points if they get a result. So I think we're all La Real fans for the next 48 hours or so. Anyway, let's focus on what was a cold Catalan derby tonight and those 4th jerseys for FC Barcelona. Let me know what you think of them down in the comments below. But it's not those jerseys that are going to get one of my headlines. So let's do it without further ado. The 5 headlines from Barcelona's 1-0 win over Girona. 1 is Oh Dembele. Let's get the bad news out of the way early and also kind of set the stage for what we just watched, because Dembele's injury about 30 minutes in is what dictated so much of the formation, so much of the tactics. As you saw, not even a third of the way into this match, Dembele comes up limping against Arnau Martinez in a 1v1 situation and had to be substituted out. Fortunately, he was sitting on the bench without a physio, didn't go right to the locker room, and the tests after the match have said that it's maybe about 2 to 3 weeks, bringing the Manchester United tie in question, but at least it's not some kind of long-term thing. I think they're pretty certain about that. But as far as the tactics of what Xavi had to do, he came into this with a lot of rotation because of the suspensions, because of the midweeks against Real Sociedad last week and Real Betis next week, and it was a change of formation. Xavi went back to a 4-3-3, but when Dembele exited and Pedri came on, it was a switch back to a 3-2-5 that we've been seeing in these quote-unquote big games. But in those big games, you also have Dembele. So we do talk about a reliance on Lewandowski, but I keep saying it. This system is actually reliant on Dembele. Though that does have something to do with what Xavi isn't getting from Rafinha, Ansu, and Ferran Torres. With speaking of them, another match where an Ansu and Rafinha went missing is not going to quiet any of the doubters. I've been resolute in my defense of the two of them. I'm willing to be very patient with Ansu. Just seeing him on the field is still a positive. And I'm willing to give Rafinha more time to get accustomed to Barcelona and his new role as Dembele's backup on the right wing. And maybe this time without Dembele, he's going to figure a few things out. But that doesn't mean that I'm not disappointed in the two of them. If Barca is going to win another trophy or two, be it La Liga, the Copa del Rey, or Europa League, you have to get something from at least one of Ansu, Rafinha, or Torres. Rafinha does have a higher assist rate than Dembele in less minutes, so that is one little positive thing to say about the Brazilian. Headline 2 is that Barca left side, and when I say that left side, I really am referring to Marcos Alonso. Because after that renewal, I think there's a good reason for us to be talking about him, especially after this game. Because when it comes to that renewal, I think the only way it really makes sense is if Barcelona is still apparently needing to cut 150 million to 200 million from the wage bill. That's a story we'll hit on the podcast, by the way, don't you worry. But the Alonso renewal only makes sense if Barca may have a way to get Jordi Alba to leave before the final year of his contract to save money. But therein lies the problem with Alonso. He's been fine this season, more than fine. I know people say get him out of the club, but he's been fine as the fourth center back. Between him and Eric Garcia, there is a fourth center back there somewhere. One of them is good enough to be the fourth center back behind Christensen, Araujo, and then Koundé being the right back and the backup third center back. But what if Xavi's going to have Koundé play right back in the long run? Then Alonso is your backup center back. But without Alba, he's also your backup left back, which is the position he's occupied the most in his career. And there's the big but. Alonso may be a left back by trade, but he doesn't make sense as a left back in this system. And as people who've been following me for a long, long time, Griezmann, Coutinho, whoever it may be, I don't quit or I'm not out on certain players because I don't think they're talented enough. There's a reason why Barcelona spent the money they did a lot of times on these players. But there's something that means that they don't fit in the system properly. It's a Rafinha issue where because he's this inverted right winger and not a touchline winger like Dembele is, he's having a lot harder of a time to figure out where he fits and how to be useful in Xavi's system. And that's my issue with Alonso. Not that he isn't quality enough to be a fourth backup or the backup left back. He's more than fine at those kind of jobs. But it's that he doesn't really naturally fit in a left back spot where those numerical overloads on the left necessitate a fullback to overlap, especially when Xavi is using that box midfield with an interior, who's usually Gabi, playing as the inside forward on the left. Barca became really stagnant on the left the moment more was being asked of him once Dembele went out of this game. Then Jordi Alba comes in, and while he did show you the worst of him late on in that game as he was desperately trying to defend, as was the rest of the team, his offensive abilities and just understanding the fit he has in Xavi's system tells you that he's still good enough to be the backup, but he's just too expensive. Comes on at halftime, completely changes everything, plays a tremendous ball to relieve pressure, waiting it just so that only Ansu can get to it and recycle pressure. And then Barca don't really give it back until when they do, Barcelona is now pressing in Girona's third of the field. They get the ball back, score the goal, and a lot of credit is given to Alba because, again, he also had the primary assist on the Pedri goal as well. Headline 3 is difficulty in punishing them. We should mention some of the negative of this match because after the 1-0 wins of recent weeks, we talked about Real Sociedad, where I wasn't really that disappointed, even though they were down to 10 men. Against Getafe, it's kind of expected behavior. But Girona, they had allowed a goal in every single La Liga match this season so far. So just for Barca to get the one, I felt like they should have done better. I think they should have got the second. But my only real defense of them is that when it came to Getafe, it came to Girona, with those suspensions to Ferran Torres, but more importantly to Lewandowski, the only thing you really had to do was get 3 points. And they did just that against Getafe, against Girona, and they did it against Atletico Madrid too. So in all those matches where you just really had to suffer and survive to try to win a Liga title, they did their job, winning 3 consecutive Liga matches for the first time in who knows how long, maybe 30 years or more. But I still did want more. I wanted this to be 2-0 or 3-0, not 1-0. There was an early giveaway by the keeper Gazzaniga behind not his first choice center backs. Former Barca B defender Santiago Bueno and former Espanyol defender David Lopez were both out for this one. Then in the 29th minute, Ansu Fati got the loose ball, fired it over. So Girona were giving Barcelona chances. They just weren't able to figure something out. And it was interesting too, because I think this game could be broken down into 4 different parts. And for 3 of those different phases of the game, Barcelona struggled to punish Girona. It was the first part where Barca seemed to have issues controlling the middle of the field with Gavi or De Jong, who was switching a bunch early on from the left to the right, because whoever's on the right side would go out to the right wing to support Rafinha, and then Ansu and Busquets would shift to the left for the numerical overloads. That left the middle of the field rather stretched for Barcelona. And due to Girona starting Angel Herrera as a secondary striker in a 4-4-1-1, Herrera is normally a box-to-box midfielder, and that's charitable to his attacking prowess at best. So he was doing rather well forcing either Busquets or De Jong, who were dropping to build to the center backs, to give the ball up quickly and under pressure. We already talked about the second phase of the game when Dembele exited and Barca got stuck, but finally in the second half when Alba came in and the game entered its third phase, Barca got some control, found some space, and scored the goal. Then the fourth phase, obviously a lot more suffering, something that unfortunately for Culés this season is something they're getting accustomed to, but as I keep saying, they are suffering, but they're winning the matches, and hey, it's not all that bad. It's not all bad because headline 4 is Pedri goal scorer. He's now got 15 goals in 100 appearances for FC Barcelona, which, if you're doing the math at home, isn't actually too shabby. That's a much better record than even Fede Valverde, and doesn't that tell you a little bit about what PR can do for whether or not a guy scores from the midfield? It's not one that Pedri will put in his highlight reel, though. It was an easy tap-in. Poor keeping from Gazzaniga again, and an easy tap-in for Pedri at the back post. But that's now 5 in the Liga, 2 more than last season, and 6 on the season, 3 of which have come in the last 5 games. And to me with Pedri, it's not about the total number of goals, but the moments he scores the goals. I know he gets the Iniesta comparisons enough, and we're starting to get the sense of ways that the two are different, which is good. But what I will say is that Iniesta did have a way of scoring some massive goals in massive moments. And to immediately contradict myself, you can make the excuse that over the course of a full career, Iniesta had a lot more moments in a lot more massive games to score those goals. So we don't know where Barcelona or Spain will be in the next 10 to 15 years. I think there will be bigger gains for Pedri to potentially come up bigger in those opportunities. For now, though, and as I always keep reminding you about Gavi and Pedri, his goal scoring rate is much higher, obviously, of that at Iniesta at the same years, because Iniesta would be up to the first team for 3 more seasons. So just be patient with Pedri and his goal scoring, but this certainly is all positive signs from the last 2 or 3 weeks. And headline 5 is if Girona could keep them. I think a lot of people here in Culés in general want to see Catalan football succeed. I do have that video I have to plug here about the history of Catalan football, so make sure you watch that. Okay, are you watching it? Okay, then come back here, because let's talk a little bit about Girona. It does make me sad. As happy as I am to see a Catalan team potentially staying up in the first division that's not Espanyol, I am sad to always be reminded that Girona is owned by Citigroup, and so their success is the success of Citigroup, and any player that does too well is certainly not long for Girona. And I'm going to talk about the other guys that Girona might lose, but the first one we have to talk about is Arnau Martinez, where Culés, let's not get too overambitious, because with the Premier League money that's going on, if a Premier League club wanted Arnau Martinez yesterday, City would sell him yesterday for some kind of 30 or 40 million. But for Arnau Martinez, yeah, it did feel a bit like a tryout. We know he's a Culé. We know he wants to return to the club. And that's really the only thing that Barca has going for them to eventually to try to bring him back to the Camp Nou. And if we were to call this a tryout for Arnau Martinez, I would say that if your team loses 1-0, he did as well as you could possibly do. A great piece of skill in stoppage time when he was going at Alba late, but was offside. You could see the skill on display. Another late run where he runs past De Jong, Gets the advantage, but that ruined the foul call. Then he had a late cross in. If Barca just rewatched the last 15 minutes of the match, Arnau Martinez would be worth 50 million euros. And what I do like about Arnau is that unlike Alonso, who I mentioned as a concern as a left back in Xavi's system, Arnau's ability to play as a right back and basically a right center back makes him a perfect fit in Xavi's system. His technical ability is there, he's got some bite and gamesmanship to him, and he may not be done improving. So he may get even better than this. He's still just 19 years old. So I'm very excited about Arnau Martinez, and I think from here on out, because Barcelona really can't afford, you can mention whoever you want at the right back spot, João Cancelo, Reece James, whoever you want from the EPL. Arnau Martinez is going to be my pick for Barcelona at the right back position to either back up Koundé or take that spot from him and move him into a three-man rotation between Koundé, Araujo, and Christensen, which I think would be arguably the three best trio, tandem, center back pairing trio, you get what I'm saying, in potentially all of world football. But it's not just Arnau. I actually like a ton of Girona's pieces, and it makes me sad to remember that they're just a feeder team for Man City. I've always liked Valentin Castellanos and Angel Herrera, having seen them in person. Oriol Romeu has had a wonderful career for his level, having left Barcelona, especially at Southampton. Enes Garcia is finally turning a corner at 25 and coming into his own. Atleti look like they have a good one in Rodrigo Riquelme. And I still remember when Culés lamented missing out on Jan Couto, who is still owned by City. Then there's Miguel Gutierrez, a left back who Real Madrid may someday bemoan not keeping. And even Joel Roca, the 17-year-old left winger who left La Masia a few seasons ago, he had a good substitute appearance. I like a lot of what Michel has to work with, and I hope that they stay up. But again, it kind of puts a bad taste in my mouth, knowing that any Girona success means Citigroup have success, and it's not really in support of the Catalan club's long-term future in the Liga. Anyway, that's it. You survived it. It was a cold Catalan derby. It was some rotation, some suspensions, an injury to Dembele, a goal from Pedri. But Barcelona, no matter how it happened, got the 3 points. Don't go too far because the next challenge is midweek against Real Betis, so come right back here for that match review. But before that, we do have a podcast coming up, and so you don't miss that. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, all those good things. And as always, until next time, Forza Barca.